Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. What's happening, man? I hope you guys are doing great today. I know my day's going pretty good, man. So, how's it going, man? Check this out, man. Before we get this video podcast started, if you would please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers, and for those of us who are still bound down, man, to some sort of struggle, you know what I mean, that keeps us from moving forward in this toxic life that we live in, man. Yeah, so if you would please join me in a moment of silence. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. All right, well, check this out, man. What's happening? Hope you guys are doing good today, man. Let me take these things off because I got to do a little reading. And can't be reading with those things because I got to switch them with the old guy things. You know what I mean? But yeah, so how's it going, man? Check this out. I guess we'll just dive right in, right, to the topic of today of what I wanted to discuss with you guys, and I chose this topic because it came up in quite a few of the meetings that I've gone to, and a couple of the therapy sessions, and a couple of the classes that I attend over at the Buddhist temple. So this was a question that kept popping up for some reason, and it's a very good question, you know what I mean? So, and a lot of people may need a little bit of an answer to that. And the question that that kept coming up in these different situations that I was in was, what is meditation? And then another part of that was, I can't meditate. I don't know how to meditate. I can't sit in silence. I can't, I got ADHD and I think about too many things. I can't concentrate. That meditation is not for me. And I thought that was kind of a intriguing question because I used to think all those things. You know what I mean? In the beginning of my spirituality journey, and which involved a lot of meditation, that was one of my gripes, man, was that how am I going to do this? You know what I mean? How the heck does sitting here in silence and with my legs crossed and just listening to nothing or just didn't really know how to do it, right? And all I knew is that I would sit there, and number one, I was just uncomfortable, number one. You know what I mean? I was so uncomfortable that my legs would fall asleep, my back would hurt, I would start getting a cramp, and then just my mind. And so the session just, boom, in minutes I was done, you know what I'm saying? So it took me a while. This is not something that you can, that's going to come all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it will for some people, I don't know, you know what I mean? Everyone's different, but for the majority of us, it's just like anything else, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just like anything else. It takes time. It takes time, and it takes a repetitious pattern. And who better to know how to do something in a repetitive way than someone like myself, who's an addict, who that's what I did. You know, if I could use and abuse on the daily, why can't I do this on the daily? You know what I'm saying? And so getting into that daily routine, you know what I mean? Doing it every single day, and then just adding a little more time to it, a little bit more time to it. But, it got better and it got easier. By no means am I like this whole guru thing or whatever, right? But I have seen the transformation in myself through my thought process, through my reactions to the suffering of my daily life, through my journaling. You can see the entries from 2 years ago to now, and it's like, wow, you know what I'm saying? This whole dark entry over here versus this, calming and birds chirping or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it's different. For everybody it's different. But here's my point: is that it works. You know what I'm saying? It works. What does it work? When somebody says it works, what is it working on? Well, what it's working on oneself getting in tune with oneself, getting to know you. You know what I mean? Ultimately, meditation process is knowing the vessel that's meditating. You know what I'm saying? Knowing you, because only you know what bothers you. Only you know why you're suffering. Only you know what it is that you need to do to alleviate the suffering. You know what I'm saying? Nobody else does. You can have many different people from the outside tell you this, tell you that, but ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody knows exactly what oneself needs except for self. You know what I mean? And because we're beings who live through our sensory organs, that makes it so very hard to live a healthy way. You know what I mean? Because we are so masked up with these layers of illusionary and delusions that it just, they start caking on. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like one of your arteries that, the more you eat a certain way, the more you get, that stuff caked on into your arteries and stuff, and the next thing you know, it's heart attack time. You know what I'm saying? But you won't know this until you're 70, 80 years old, right? Or maybe even sooner, but it depends on how drastic you are. But, it's not something that automatically you see. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same way with this mental thought process. It's not something that's going to happen right away. And meditation is just one of those things that takes time, just like anything else. But it's a very good exercise, because it's not only a physical exercise, it's more of a mental exercise. And that's what everybody gets they mistake these things, that, how am I going to incorporate this breathing and this yoga and this Tai Chi? And it's not just that, you know what I mean? It's what you're doing is you're exercising the neuroplasticity of your brain. You're exercising your brain. You know what I'm saying? And the more you exercise it, the better it gets. You know what I'm saying? And but anyway, what I want to do is I want to read you a few things that I noted down. And first, what I want to do is talk about meditation in its philosophical form, right? First, we need to know, if you want to know what meditation is, you got to know what meditation means. You know what I mean? And the word meditation actually is an ancient term, which derives from a Sanskrit term called dhyana. And dhyana just means meditation. You know what I mean? So dhyana is something that has been around for centuries, since thousands of years. You know what I mean? And it's a Sanskrit term. You know what I mean? So Sanskrit and Pali is just ancient stuff. You know what I mean? But it's ancient wisdom. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. And it's ancient wisdom philosophies that have been proven throughout the years, throughout the centuries, decades, and all of that stuff to still work in today's world. You know what I'm saying? That's the cool part. That's one of the cool parts. But anyway, let me see. Okay, so I got it noted down here that, like I said, the word dhyana in Sanskrit, it's translated to simply mean meditation. But its true meaning in the Buddhist tradition goes much deeper. It derives from the root dhyai, which means to contemplate or to reflect. And I like that part of it, because that's exactly what you're doing when you're in meditation mode. you are contemplating and you're reflecting on your thoughts. You know what I mean? So it's very good definition. You know what I mean? Anyway, dhyana refers to a state of profound inner absorption. It is a meditative stillness so deep and stable that usual turbulence of thought and emotion falls away and the mind becomes unified and serene. And that, to me, I've experienced that. You know what I mean? Because I could remember in my early meditation days, I would just sit there in silence and I would think about something and think about something and think about something. It was like almost every 5 seconds I'm thinking something different. You know what I mean? And then I'm uncomfortable and then I'm moving and it's just, the whole focus was just not there. But as I practiced more and more and more, I found that my time started moving. You know what I mean? It started lengthening from thought to thought. You know what I'm saying? From seconds to minutes, and it started growing. And you know, and it's we'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. But anyway, so in Pali, like I said, Sanskrit, the Sanskrit terms and the Pali terms are of ancient Vedic in language and stuff like that, which is like one of the earliest languages that was ever, you know, found or whatever. But anyway, the language of the early Buddhist text, dhyana, is rendered as jhana. As Buddhism spread across Asia, this term evolved in different languages and schools. And although these traditions developed distinct styles, meditation, they all trace their roots to this same fundamental experience of deep contemplative awareness. And that right there is the part that us, you and I, as practitioners of meditation in any form, is exactly that. You're contemplating your awareness of every single thought. Doesn't matter how many thoughts that you have coming in every 5 seconds. The part of you noticing and being aware of that thought and then letting it go, and if the other thought comes, it comes. And you're aware of that thought and you let it go. But the point is here is not to stick to each thought for a long time and start getting and start going into this rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? So once you get it, you're aware of it, you know that you're thinking about it, then let it go. Then come back to your focal point in meditation, which is, it could be anything. You know what I mean? It could be, you know, you breathing in and out through your nose, or in through your nose, out through your mouth, or you're listening to some waves, or you're listening to some, you know, meditative flute, or you know, whatever sounds, and or you're chanting mantras. You know what I mean? I personally meditate to Native American and Tibetan flute music, and I also do the solfeggio tuning fork sounds with the hertz. And my favorite is to chant. I do a lot of chanting, and I chant the Daimyo, which is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. I'll chant that. I'll chant the Heart Sutra, and I'll chant the Avalokiteshvara 101 syllable mantra, the Vajrastava mantra, and I also will do the Om Mani Padme Hum chant as well, and all of these things are chants that are purifying and cleansing your karmic energies, and setting a good foundation for your day, for whatever tasks you're going to have throughout the day. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a process, and it's just a good practice to start off your day in that way. You know what I'm saying? Because it clears your mind, and you got this clarity, and you got this sense of compassion and mindfulness for yourself. And when you have that for yourself, then in turn there, you want to share it with somebody else. You know what I mean? So you go throughout your day doing that. You know what I mean? And it almost comes second nature. You know what I mean? And to me, now that I'm deep, a couple of years into my spirituality practice, that's how it happens. You know what I'm saying? But initially it wasn't so much so, but because I stuck with it, and because I enjoyed the way the transformation was going for me, it worked. You know what I mean? And my way could be your way. You know what I'm saying? And if it's not, it could just be a way for you to explore. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's go on to this thing here. And when we're cultivating in the dhyana, which is cultivating in the meditation, what we're doing is we're nurturing the three interrelated qualities of oneself, which is, and this is what you're doing as you're meditating. This is what you're mentally working on. You're working on your concentration, which is the ability to steady the mind on a single object without distraction. And you're also practicing mindfulness, which is the clear, non-reactive awareness of what is happening in the present moment. And also you're working on your equanimity, which is a balanced, spacious state of mind that is not always swayed by pleasure or pain. You know what I mean? It could just be that. It could just be a thing. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really have to be this whole pleasurable thing or this discomfort. It's just getting equanimity with everything, and you really becoming one with your surroundings, externally and internally. You know what I mean? Because ultimately that's what we're connecting to, because we're all one. You know what I'm saying? That's what I like about the meditation, is that I'm not only meditating to have myself a clear mind and a healthy way of living, but because I'm doing this, because I'm in this world, and my actions, the way I see it, my actions reflect and affect other people's actions. You know what I mean? Even if I don't know you, you know what I'm saying? Anything that I do, anything that I say, whatever I'm doing, everything is affecting somebody else in some way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? So when you have that mindfulness and compassion about you, and you bring those things to the forefront, and know that when you have that kind of wisdom to bring forth into your into that time into your reactivity time of suffering, and that's basically how you think and react to the actions that bring you suffering. And it could be anything, you know what I mean? But because you practice this type of meditation and these things that are, to me, it all goes back to practicing for me in the Buddhist tradition. It's practicing the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And I'll just kind of throw that out there real quick, just for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. The Four Noble Truths is it's the foundation of Buddhist philosophy. You know what I mean? And this is where the first teachings of Buddha after his enlightenment come from. And this is what he said after he discovered how to deal with the suffering, how to eliminate the suffering. And this is, the first thing is the truth of suffering, which in Sanskrit is called dukkha. And this is the life involves suffering. This is, you come to this realization that life involves suffering, both obvious pain and subtle dissatisfaction. Even joy is impermanent, leading to eventual discomfort. And the second truth is the origin of suffering, which in Sanskrit is called samyudaya. And this is the realization that suffering arises from craving and from attachment and ignorance on oneself. And we desire things to be different than they are, which creates a cycle of dissatisfaction. This is the cyclical way of thinking that because we are beings that live through our sensory organs. This is just how it is. You know what I'm saying? And then the third part of that Four Noble Truths is the cessation of suffering, which in the Sanskrit term is nirodha. And it is possible to end suffering by letting go of craving and attachment. This leads to liberation and peace. And this is where you are trying to reel in nirvana, which is enlightenment, which is to live without the suffering, in a sense. You know what I'm saying? And this is where the Buddha, this is what he came up with and what happened with him. And this is what he shares with his disciples and stuff like that. And this is the basis and the foundation of every Buddhist sect that there is. So this is really good stuff. And because it's all a mental thing, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing here that is like this weird thing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? This is all mental. This is all a mental process, a mental capacity of working on exactly that, your mental capacity. And because we're connected to this divine energy that is supposed to be of infinite things, that to me is this thing that we have. You know what I mean? We're able and capable of putting in as much wisdom and knowledge into your mind to deal with and help you with the reactivity of reacting to the suffering. And the capacity of that reactivity that you can have is just infinite. Because check this out, when you when you get into these notions of, oh, I can't do this because of this, or there's no way I can meditate for that long, or when you start talking like that, you start setting limitations to your mental capacity. And when you start doing that, then you basically you're setting yourself up for this hamster wheel effect. You know what I'm saying? You're never going to get out of that cycle if you keep having those limitations on your thought process, man. You know what I'm saying? So when you get that language out of there and put these different type of language in there and saying, you know what? Hey, you know what? I get to meditate today. How much different does that feel when you say, I get to meditate today, than, oh, I have to meditate today? Because when you say that you have to do something, you're automatically putting resistance to whatever it is that you're doing. And when you're doing resistance, that's automatically suffering. You know what I'm saying? So when you say something like, man, you know what, I get to do this today, now that feels so much liberating. Even saying it, you can feel the tension in your muscles and your facial muscles and your, for me, that's where I feel it. And I can just feel like, wow, relax. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do this. You know what I mean? So anyway, and when I get my meditation process is founded on these Four Noble Truths, and in turn there, I start practicing it in the Eightfold Path, which is right view. The path is divided into three categories. It's a category of wisdom, ethical conduct, and a mental discipline. And that is all about meditation. You know what I'm saying? So the wisdom part of it is looking at things, they call it right view. And what right view means, it's the understanding that the Four Noble Truths and the nature of reality. Okay? And then right intention is cultivating intentions of renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. In other words, when you cultivate the right intention to do something, that means you're letting go of stuff. You know what I mean? And what better way when you can let go of barriers, like if you're having a hard time dealing with another person, or you got these walls up, you're going to be amazed that when you start letting them walls down a little bit and start being a little bit more vulnerable and compassionate towards somebody else, the better you're going to start feeling, and the easier meditation starts coming, and the easier your life starts getting. You know what I mean? So anyway, the next part of this is the ethical conduct in the practice of doing uh, the wisdom, ethical, and mental discipline in the Eightfold Path. Okay, so then this is which is right speech, which means speaking truthfully, kindly, and constructively. Right action, which is acting ethically, avoiding harm to others. And then right livelihood is earning a living a way that does not cause suffering. You know what I mean? That one's kind of a hard one to do because you could be a nurse and giving somebody a shot, and now you're causing somebody suffering. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of, that's a little bit of it's, you have to really use right view and right intention when you're doing that one, you know what I mean? And this is what I like about the Eightfold Path, man, is that all these things are always working with one another. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that's going to mesh right in with your life. It doesn't matter what it is that you do or where you come from or who you are. These things are it's just a weird way that they're so, you fit this puzzle no matter who you are. You know what I mean? Okay, so anyway, the last part of it is the mental discipline, which is the right effort, which is cultivating positive states of mind and avoiding negative ones. And that's like I was just saying, you know, speaking a certain way, you know, that's avoiding those negative thought processes and putting in something that's a little bit better, more positive, more of a divine nature in there. You know what I mean? Okay, and then the right mindfulness, which is being aware of body, feelings, thoughts, and phenomena. And what that is being aware of what you're doing to you, what you're doing to others, what your actions are going to do to somebody else when you do them. You know what I mean? It's just really being aware in the here and now. You know what I mean? It forces you to focus your thought process to what you're doing in the here and now. It gets you away from thinking of things of the past or things that are in the future. Because when you're thinking about something that's of the past and something that's in the future, you're thinking of non-existent things. You know what I'm saying? So it's a wasted energy there. So it forces you to focus on what you're dealing with in the here and now. So you bring in those problems and the suffering to the forefront and having to deal with them. Because ultimately, as addicts of anything or of any type of trauma or anything like that, that's what we have to do. We can't fix any of that if we're doing it from the side. You know what I mean? Or from a different, perspective or whatever. We have to bring that stuff to the forefront and deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so the last thing is the right concentration, which is developing deep states of meditative absorption. And that right there is just a practice. You know what I mean? When you are studying and practicing spirituality and just digging into the definition of things and practices and then not only reading them or watching podcasts or videos or whatever, but actually doing the work. You know what I'm saying? Actually putting it into action into your own lives is where you're going to start seeing and reaping the rewards of all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And you'll start noticing the difference in your life from on any scale. You know what I mean? So that's basically the whole kind of in-depth part of meditation. And just know that meditation isn't just sitting in silence. You know what I mean? It's one form of meditation. There's many forms. Meditation involves things like, stretching and doing maybe some yoga and all of these other, there's walking meditations, which is a really good one. One that I do, pretty regularly also is a walking meditation, because it's just, when you're doing, let me just kind of throw this out there, when you're doing walking meditation, you're either doing it in a labyrinth ring or around a track or something like that, or just anywhere really. But the best way to do this is out like in nature or something, so that you're just focusing on walking one foot in front of the other. Not like a big step, but just literally one foot in front of the other. And then just focusing on that, and then focusing on the surroundings, the things that you see, the things that you hear. And that is being aware. That's being aware of the here and now. That's bringing your focal point into the here and now. You know what I mean? And that's the practice. You know what I mean? That's the practice. When you can do that every single day. You know, I personally, I meditate a lot, you know what I mean? And that's just me, you know what I mean? That's just my preference. And I do about an hour to 2 hours sometimes in the morning, and then I do for sure an hour before I go to sleep. And I do my meditation and my chanting, you know what I mean? And that works for me, you know what I'm saying? That keeps my mental capacity on its P's and Q's in a sense, you know what I'm saying? And it gives me this sense of calmness and this sense of that I'm doing something that's helping. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, it's easy to fall into depression. It's easy to fall into these states of mind that are of negative energy and non-productive, you know what I'm saying, and of no divine nature, you know what I mean. So for me, it connects me to my divine sense of connection to the divinity of some sort, of whatever's out there, you know what I mean. And that's where the spirituality for me is just a plus, because I feel like I'm connected to that divine matrix in one shape, form, or another, with the cosmos, with Mother Earth, and with my energy that I have, and it's just great, you know what I mean. But you know, it's just one of those things, man. And but anyway, I just wanted to kind of, you know, throw that out there today, and hopefully it answers some questions for some people, and hopefully it helps you out in your practice of meditation, man, and helps you in your recovery, man, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do here, is help people with their journey in their recovery, so that they stay there, you know what I mean, and share and keep, you know, give you some insight to also share and help somebody else, you know what I mean. So, but anyway, that's what I like to do here, man, is just share a message, dude. So, but anyway, if you would please, at this time, if you would please give me a thumbs up, shoot me a comment. Please hit the subscribe button. Just know that when you do hit the subscribe button, man, it don't cost you a thing. It don't cost you a thing at all. But you know what? You'll be helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experiences, trauma, drug addiction, alcoholism, suicidal thoughts, depression, anger issues, all of those things, my friends, because my friends, have dealt with all of those things at one point in time in my life. And guess what, man? I know a way out, man. And my way out could be your way out. But anyway, until the next time, man, when the smoke clears, I am the Recovery Plug.